Yo, Twitch. That's a terrible start. Hey guys, I'm Adam. Welcome to the Noobcast, where we are going to be talking about some of the top games coming out this week. There's a whole bunch of them. We had about 11 curated out of 153. I whittled it down to 7. We are roughly covering, as OP Noobs, you can go check out the reviews on the website, 7.19% of the games releasing just this week. That's too many. Guys, slow down. I am joined by Chris Natsume, Logan Demelt, who we have seen before, Allie. Welcome to the show. She is our first. She's a first timer here on the Noobcast, and then Brick is going to be the ethereal voice.
Hi. Hello.
That's the one.
Do it again, Brick. Do it again.
Hello.
You can only talk like that the whole rest of the show, dude.
Bet I won't.
All right. He's a cop. He's trying to hide his identity because he can't be seen with the likes of us, a bunch of degenerates.
Undercover.
All right. So, first game we're talking about today is a game called Reiko's Fragments. VR versus crowd is the concept here. So I'll let them describe it. So Reiko's Fragments VR versus crowd game. The VR player must escape a haunted house, a vengeful ghost, and even worse, their friends playing as spirits who have full control over the house they're trying to escape. So I know that we have at least a couple of devs here with experience in VR development. We've talked a couple of times in this show about the limitations, at least as far as like audience accessibility with VR. This is a game where you are much like I remember a Wii U game where it was like a Luigi's Mansion mini game where one person played as a ghost, and so this seems to be expounded upon that to a greater degree. So, but you put it in VR. Is this are VR fans gonna bite on a crowd, on a asymmetrical monster versus crowd game?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am a VR fan. I am biting. This is actually really cool. I mean, one of the things we talk about when we've talked about VR stuff before is people just trying to take the same game and be like, oh, it's going to be cooler because we put it in VR. You know, it's a shooter, but it's in VR. It's a whatever, but we put it in VR. This actually looks like it's taking VR and trying to do something kind of new and interesting with it, and really use VR. I mean, you know, having jump scares come at you and having people be able to mess with you. It sounds like a lot of fun. My concern is like I'm a little confused how it all works. Like, how many people have got 8 VR setups in their house? Like, I'm not sure how all that works.
So it looks like everyone else can play from their either phone or computer. On the trailer, you have
one VR headset and then like party style. So like one person and then like everybody else on their phones or PCs or whatever, just fucking with the one poor bastard in the VR.
Right.
Which would be cool. That would be awesome. That sounds like a lot of alcohol could get involved, and it
sounds like a blast, honestly.
Yeah, it does. But it also limits itself.
It's really, the game is asking the question, like, can you make a VR party game?
Yeah.
Without having to get several big rigs together, and this seems to be a way that it really could work.
It's actually a really good point. Because a lot of times when people are playing VR games, it's really boring for everyone else because like the one guy's got the mask and everybody else is like, I wonder what's going on in there. And you can kind of see on the TV, but it's there's not really much you can do with it. So that's actually a really nice point.
So this is something that I saw a bit of at PAX this season, and I know there's a lot of devs working in this space. A couple points to this is obviously since I am biased from the Oculus side because I work for Facebook.
Oh!
Whoa!
My God. I own an Oculus. I won't talk.
It was fun. Thanks, guys. No, I mean, I saw a couple of devs doing some really good stuff in this space, and the big stuff for party games is going to be having cell phone inclusion, and there's been a lot of good APIs that have been helping drive that multiplayer experience. Ultimately, I think this is going to be a phenomenal way to help expand the space and get more people interested in having that sort of party, right? Of like one person needs to have the rock band kit and drive it around and everybody else can just kind of participate.
Interesting.
Do you think it'll be good for
that kind of application in a while? Sorry,
do you think it'd be good for like content creators, like people who want to interact, like streamers and stuff, who want to interact with their audience, like this kind of thing?
Yeah.
So, network play, I'm not so familiar with, but more of that cell phone participation, I think, can be done from anywhere for a lot of the games that I was seeing. So I think it could start to lend to that way with protected password lobbies. And I think this is a totally.
That was my first thought when I saw it.
Yeah. Some of the games I heard, I don't know about this game specifically, but this could start to lend into that audience, which I think is also phenomenal. So yeah, I think this is a great way to start another edition of the way VR is going to be more inclusive in these early stages while it's still getting the adapter rate up. So, because everybody has a cell phone, right? And whatchamacallit, a good example of this that's currently out is You Don't Know Jack, like for 360 or PC, and people can play along and log in from their cell phones, and I've seen that go really well. So.
Northwest and southeast.
Yeah,
and I just got off a plane, so my brain is still like decompressing.
You're gone.
Yeah, this seems like a really a new fun, like accessible way. So the one thing that might scare some people away is that this is not a fun boo ghosts kind of aesthetic. Some folks, some groups of friends that like typically would do the kind of rock band setup thing like you were talking about, where it's like, oh, I just drug this from my dorm room. It is gruesome, the aesthetic here. So I wonder if it's. I mean, I
give it to me.
I think so too, but I think like if they really did do something like this, but make it Luigi's Mansion-esque, I think you could have something that maybe reaches a greater audience. Something you can put in arcades much easier, things like that.
Yeah, this is definitely
I don't know.
I think people
are used to this. Yeah. People are used to gore. I mean, blood in video games ain't new, man.
No blood. What?
I'm just saying, like blood and gore and being like
spoopy.
It doesn't have to be Nintendo to be a party game, I guess is my point, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I think there's 8 people out there that want to play something that looks like, Freddy Krueger or something a little more real.
And with this is only the second title that I'm aware of personally, other than I think it's called Takeling's House Party for VR, that has the cell phone incorporation where you can. I mean, the VR is kind of a niche thing already. So I think this game would be great if I had friends, but I don't.
Excuse me?
I think that's a cool concept, man.
Allie's waving at you to let you know she is your friend, but she doesn't mean it.
I know. That's why.
I would like to point out, by the way, it looks really pretty. Actually, the art looks really good.
Yeah,
the visuals look really good. I mean, it's a nice concept, and it's nice we talk about the concept, but it looks like a pretty decent implementation. I mean, I obviously haven't played it, but from the videos and the screenshots and whatnot, it looks like it has a pretty good artistic style. It looks pretty.
And like you said, it's something different on VR. That's not a shooter. It's not it's not your stereotypical VR game. It goes somewhere else with it. Which I really liked. It
takes, so I mean, they probably could have made a game that looks a lot like this, but made it one of those more typical on rails horror jump scare game. But this could be something really interesting. This could really catch on. At least make for some really great YouTube content for people that don't have VR games. Yeah.
I completely agree with you guys. I'm stoked for it.
Yeah. I think the most important point here, though, was Allie's point. I think this really opens itself up to a whole genre of games that are something that a live streamer or somebody who people care about can get involved with. I mean, one of the big things that we look for as developers right now is what makes a game twitchable. And to be twitchable, you want to have somewhere where the fans and the people watching the live stream can get involved with the live streamer.
Right.
I actually think Allie's point was probably the most useful out of our blatherings. I guess.
Well, thanks, Chris.
Thanks. So what I really want to say is Logan is
leave it to Allie.
Like Logan's, just don't even listen to that guy. We got better now.
Marsha.
I'm gonna go get another drink because then I'll just keep on flight
Exactly.
Not dry liver.
Logan, you're so drunk. And just a reminder, something I forgot to say at the top of the show, by the way, we do have giveaways going in chat. Make sure you give some love to Sin. He's helping us out over there. And then we also have a raffle going that we're going to drop at the end of the show. So today, if you go to opnoobs.com/raffle, we're gonna raffle off a copy of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, a game that I've been advised to not talk shit about because Fred is a fascist. We are actually opnoobs.com/raffle. If you can pick up Reiko's Fragment, if you got the VR set up or have a friend that does, this seems like a super interesting implementation of all those mechanics kind of coming together as a party game. So you can pick that up on Monday today. So go pick up Reiko's Fragment. Looks really interesting. We're going to move on to a game called After Party, another game on Steam, developed and published by Night School Studio. It is So I'll let them explain it first. In After Party, you are Milo and Lola, recently deceased best buds who suddenly find themselves staring down an eternity in hell. But there's a loophole. Outdrink Satan, and he'll grant you re-entry to Earth. So seems to be some conversation simulator stuff. A lot of it's a high concept comedy game that they claim is story rich, which is just kind of a tired Steam tag at this point, but I thought it looked cool enough. It didn't seem to be a lazy, you see so many of these conversation heavy games that are just kind of like anime weirdo simulators. So this seems better. This seems like something that something worth talking about. So, Allie, what do you think of After Party?
I think it looks really cool. I'm not sure it's kind of like my style of game. It kind of seems just like a choose your own adventure thing. I think the art kind of reminds me of that Coco movie a little bit. Like, I don't know.
I think that's a compliment. That movie looked good.
I think it looks really cool, but I don't think I get it. Like, I don't think I get the outdrink Satan. Like, is it just is the choose your own adventure? Like, do I have a shot of Jack or do I have a sex on the beach? Like, what's your...
So honestly, I think there is some of that. There's a bit in the trailer where he
drinks a dead orphan. Yeah.
I think that's really, it's like, is that it? Do I just get to pick a name of a funny drink, or like where am I going with it a little bit? I think
you do get to dance at one portion, I believe. So that's a bonus.
I like how that pieces. Like Brick kind of just sounds like a strip club DJ right now. Like,
you get to dance.
You do get to dance. You get to fun drinks and dancing.
Cheap seats are in the parking lot, fella. You found your career.
So like maybe this game, I've seen a lot of trailers for it, and I am super, super, super pumped for it. I think the writing is super clever. How it actually plays out is going to be, I think, very much a point and click, strongly drawn on the narrative story, but I think it's going to really, really push the comedy genre, because it is kind of like a Daria flat comedy for the female, and just like what are we doing here? And they found a loophole, basically, kind of that Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey style of like, we'll beat death at something, and the only way that they can find to get out of hell is this party, and out party Satan is ultimately the big ticket out for them. And so, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really well written. That's just, I have it pre-reserved because this is one I actually think I can carve out a small amount of time for. So I'm excited by it, but
somehow with what you just said, you raised my opinion of the game. Like,
I also just read this little
what did they pay you?
I get a bottle of booze. I mean,
I think the graphics, like the art style, is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I don't play any of these type of games. I don't play point and clicks. But you, for some reason, just made me be like, how much money can I spare?
I mean, it seems like, because kind of like I was saying, we've actually talked about a couple of these games before where you almost have like a matte painting in the back, and you have some lightly animated characters that get to click on stuff. It's easy to make a lowest common denominator point and click adventure. This seems so if Logan, if you're right, and they really do have that that witty, fun hook to their writing, and they really do deliver a good story. This doesn't look like a lazy game whatsoever.
No,
There's really
not
been
at
some
all.
time put into it.
No, I think they've spent a little time on it. It's been mentioned for a little while with a lot of different media presentations. So I really think it's going to be a sleeper one. I'm unfamiliar with the devs, so you never know how it could fall apart. But I think they could have a ways to even grow within this specific game genre or this environment of hell in different ways.
With your roles, it's always so close to.
Could be wrong. Never know.
Last week's show.
We'll see. I mean, After Party does seem, it's just, is it going to be the equivalent of a really good movie? Can it be better than a movie? Can it tell a better story? Can it engage me in a way that really wants me to does it make me curious as I'm going through this point and click adventure?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So Chris Natsume, I know you have a lot of experience in like hidden object games and stuff like that. You've designed things something like this, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, what we did is, for a totally different audience, and I think this is a very different game than anything I've put together. But, and the general idea of moving through a story and solving puzzles and whatnot, I guess is similar into a lot of the stuff we built. But I don't know. I mean, it looks really fun to me. I think the graphics look interesting. I think the characters look interesting. It looks reasonably high quality. It looks like somebody's put some real time into it. But it's the same problem that you always have with these games is the writing good, right? If somebody says we're going to have a story-centric game and it's going to be all about the story and this really funny, interesting, sort of thing that we have where we're going to outdrink Satan, I mean, it sounds kind of cool on the outside, so it could be really cool, right? But I think I'd need to get in and honestly play 15, 20 minutes of it before I could be like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Because you could tell, like, if a game's going to be funny, it's funny in the first 5 minutes, or it's not ever gonna. There's never a game where like after 5 minutes it really got funny. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? And so I mean, I certainly think if people are into this kind of game, this certainly looks like something that would be worth picking up and having a look at. As to whether or not it's going to be amazing, it's hard to judge these kind of games because it doesn't show up in funny doesn't show up in screenshots. It kind of shows up in a trailer, maybe. I didn't actually see anything in the trailer that I thought was hilariously funny. But again, it's hard to do that in the 30 seconds, 45 seconds of trailer that they got. It's hard to set up a joke like that. So
Let's trust Logan.
Also,
I mean, that's just I've seen a bunch of trailers for it, and not specifically this one on Steam. And I don't think that this trailer that they have posted right now is their best marketing material. Cool, thanks.
Logan, I wonder. So I'm curious to know. So can we let's take a quick poll in chat. Give me an exclamation point if you understood Logan's Daria reference, or are you 12 years old?
No,
are you 12? Are we 850? Is Twitch 12? That's what we need to figure out here.
God.
Oh man, if she doesn't know that reference, she's too young for you, bro.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There was a time that MTV had only just started playing cartoons and other shit content. So you can pick up.
I can't believe you just referred to Beavis and Butthead as other shit content. You and I can't be friends anymore. Just for the record. You and I can't be friends anymore. Beavis and Butthead was the best thing that was ever on TV, goddammit.
Ever?
I support.
I'm not saying it was bad. For every Beavis and Butthead, there's more.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So
we got one exclamation point in the chat.
No.
Did you have to ask that, Adam? Just like
I did. Because so.
And for the record, everybody knows Beavis and Butthead. Daria, they're like, I don't know. That was a shitty spinoff. I don't know. She was depressing and she wore black.
Good.
Oh no,
my angsty teenage self could really relate. So
it was like so. Actually, I'd be willing to bet that she inspired a lot of April Ludgate. If you guys know Parks and Rec, she was like a cartoon version of April Ludgate. Just negative and dry to a hilarious comedian.
What a good comparison, dude.
That's really, I've never even thought of that.
Parks and Rec is my jam. All right.
I've never seen an episode of Parks and Rec. So see,
it's
really
a worse Office. It's
yeah,
the worst The Office. Yeah.
Still
it's
worth the
good.
watch.
but it's not Michael Scott, bro.
True.
That's what Brick comes back with out of nowhere. But it's not Michael Scott.
It's true.
That's where what's his name now he's a Marvel. He's like Harrison Ford now, but Jesus Christ, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
That
His
dude's
point-
sexy.
The other day.
Yes. So
Yeah, that dude's
his
hot.
character in Parks and Rec reaches a point where it's like you just start laughing when he appears in a
Right,
scene.
that's
Like he doesn't have
very
to say
true.
anything.
Yeah.
He's just hilarious on sight. So this has been a review of Parks and Rec.
Let's step out of the 1990s Wayback Machine and move on.
You can pick up After Party tomorrow, this Tuesday on Steam. I don't have a price, but Night School Studio. It looks interesting. If you're at all interested in point and click adventures, this definitely seems like one checking out. So we are actually going to transition back to a dark, gritty VR game.
Boopy.
And I kind of wanted to put this in the lineup as a like to juxtapose it against Reiko. Was it Reiko's Fragment? Yes. So because that seemed to be doing something really, really interesting with that horror genre. Pagan Peak VR, developed by Another World, is going to be probably much more typical. But I do see some things. It almost looks a little bit like you're kind of like, I don't know if they've made a VR Saw game yet. I don't even like the Saw movies, but I could see it making for a really intense VR experience. This seems to be something like you are the victim of a Saw-like puzzle and you are stuck in this cabin, this like, I don't know, a farmhouse. I'm not sure exactly what it is. So VR developers, Chris and Logan, is this game doing anything to set itself apart from other VR horror experiences?
You
know what that
A resounding silence.
So, I mean, I like the Saw movies. I like puzzles. I like some of the elements of their, 2-star Airbnb in the woods action going on right here. That happens to be like a secret creeper base where you're obviously seeing a lot of surveillance and you're trying to figure out this crazy killer, and I don't understand your sole role necessarily as some dude in a mask tries to kill you because you found his cabin. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that it will be as deep as they expect it to be. Like, understanding his psyche, they've got some case files. It's crazy. He's a stalker. I don't know. I think it's going to be a lot of kind of just puzzles in low lighting. I don't know if it'll read as well as the other one. And I'm not trying to hate on it. It is kind of, I like horror a ton. I love horror. But I'm not sure if this one, compared to the other one that I can play with my friends, would be as engaging for myself personally.
True.
I just hate the idea that like every time there's a game that's like got a killer, the killer is like this brainiac who loves. Where are these people? I mean, I watch the news, and when they catch a killer, it's always like some meth head guy from Florida who's like,
True.
I don't like women. And,
The Florida
and like, where are these people coming from in these shows? Like it's in the TV and the movies and everywhere. It's like, he's a serial killer. He must be smarter than me. No, he's just a dude that likes killing people. It's like
asshole.
I don't get it.
Because villains need depth.
Yes.
They need case files and light puzzle solving elements, Chris.
It's so fucking trite. It's just like, again, look, he wears a funny mask and he set up a puzzle and I'm just like,
for no reason.
Because he always lost at Monopoly and Donnie Darko was his favorite movie. I don't know.
We get it, okay?
Yeah, it just seems, I don't know. I mean, I hate to rag on it because it's like a whole genre. This is not me like criticizing this game. This is just me having this taste. It's hard for me to look past that when it's another game where there's another brilliant psychopath and he's set up a bunch of riddles and like Logan says, I got to solve them in this really dark room. And it's hard enough to see shit in VR without the lights all being turned off.
No shit.
So I don't know. It sounds kind of frustrating to me. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell from the videos, but even from the videos, it was pretty damn dark.
I'll make a comment on this because I've played a lot of VR escape rooms, right? And I've always had fun with them. But one of the main complaints I always had was its room scale, and that's your mobility. Boom.
Yep.
That's it. And this one looks like it offers the whole house to you, that you're able to maneuver and walk around to different rooms. And at that, I think that the object manipulation in the trailer looks really good. How you can have a small object, but you're able to tweak a lid off of an object or rotate a piece. That's kind of interesting to me, because the escape rooms, maybe I'm on the backwoods of it. It's just like pushing buttons in the right way. I don't know. So I like that, but where... I mean, if you get out of the house, what happens then? Because there's this one segment of him like flashlighting around a tree, and then it cuts back to the dude, and he's like looking under his couch. So I don't know what's happening there.
It's like leaving the front door in Resident Evil. The dogs bark at you, you get tossed back in. You know, there's a solve for that. They want you to think. I probably am just assuming they want you to think it's a big, expansive world, but you probably can't go very far outside the house, I would imagine.
And as long as that's the "you win" screen, like when you get 100 yards from the house, I'm cool with that, I guess. But give me a little bit. Give me a chase. Let me run. That's kind of interesting. But
so if this, so Chris, you inspired me. Ali, I'm wondering what you think. So if this game were, if it weren't masked psychopath with brilliant master plan and all this depth, if it were. I'm stuck in the woods, hiding from
angry crack addict,
mountain tweakers. Yeah.
Mountain tweakers. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
It's crazy mountain tweakers.
If you were hiding from a group of heroin addicted whites, would you find this game more attractive? Would this be more appealing than kind of your more stereotypical guy with mask?
No. I mean, there's a reason they make games like this. I get it, right? I understand. You want to puzzle.
The question was posed to Allie.
Well, like I understand what they're trying to do, and like in theory, I think it seems really great because you've got all these like really great horror movies that kind of have that same element, like The Strangers and like those kind of movies that are based off of like. Loosely based off of actual events of things that have happened. So like I get that that's spooky and stuff, but this over that was it the Reiko's Revenge, that one looks just so much better. It looks like so much more fun. I think they did a really great job of like advertising with this one, because they like you guys were saying, it's really hard to advertise a VR game with a 2D video.
Yeah.
And they actually show you how you
get the feeling.
You're manipulating it. It's hard to do. It looks like shit from the player's perspective, but they kind of give you an idea of like what the movement is and what it's going to look like, which kind of gives it a little bit better of a feel for advertisement for it. But other than that,
yes, yeah, right.
It's just for the record, Adam, can I name my next WoW clan the Mountain Tweakers? Because that's just awesome, right? It's me and the Mountain Tweakers. We're going out.
I'm thinking that one might get reported.
It's like a speed metal cover band of the Mountain Goats.
Yeah, exactly.
So for our 12-year-old Twitch audience out there, the Mountain Goats is basically just John Darnielle. He made some really sad music. When your first girlfriend breaks up with you, you will probably discover the Mountain Goats.
Wow. I know way more about Adam in like 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Suddenly Colorado makes sense to me.
I think a question we should pose for this game, though, is what if we're going to compare it to the other one we talked about first, is which one is more fun for the person in VR? You know, for that, because usually my VR stints have always been like at max an hour at a time before I'm like, woof, I'm dying. So I wonder if this one will be more intriguing to the player in the moment for that hour span, if we're going to be generous with timelines, or is it going to be more fun with that group dynamic? Which one's going to be spoopier?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, with this one, I don't got to round up 8 of my friends.
I don't even have 8 friends. Yeah, I don't.
Right. I mean, that's the one thing we didn't talk about in that other game is like, come on, how hard is it? I mean, just to get like 3 dudes to go out and drink beer with me is a challenge these days.
Bro, we're struggling at work with just shift coverage. We all hate each other. I guess I don't get it. We can't even get the people to clock in. I don't know.
And so, rounding up that many friends to hang out and play a video game is going to be hard. Even if they can play online from their own houses, it's still kind of challenging. So, I mean, there's something to be said for single player experiences in VR just from the logistics of it all.
Yeah, like I said, the other one's going to be more for that, like, audience interaction for streamers and that kind of thing. I think that's really where the market for that is people who are doing that kind of thing.
I can agree with that.
I wonder if it is opened up to online, I guarantee it's gonna be fun for streamers to make that what you call it, Twitchability, or that Twitch. Like that. I think that would be a great way for we're talking about Reiko's Fragment again. I think that would be a great way.
Fun.
Yeah. To reach a wider audience. I don't see a time. I mean, we'll see how the game plays, like on a device, on a phone or a computer, but I have a hard time believing that just that side of it, like just me alone sitting on my couch fucking with Dave, like while he's I don't know.
Again, I suddenly understand what happens in Colorado. No joke. That's a good weekend in Denver, ladies and gentlemen, sitting around on the couch fucking with Dave.
Back to Reiko's as well. Like, what I wonder what it gives to that player on their phone. Is it just like little? How are you seeing the world? Is it just a map?
It's kind of like I choose the torture for the person in the VR headset.
And is it just like you tap a table and the shit explodes on it, and that's the extent, and then the AI ghost is just kind of following the player? I want to know. I want to buy it.
We can echo back onto this one just before we swing on to the next one. But like an example of a VR phone experience that I saw at PAX would have been like you are a tree and there's squirrels running around you, throwing stuff at you, and you're trying to defeat the squirrels and protect yourself. And it can scale, getting nuts tossed at your face anywhere from 4 to 8.
Wow. Hey! Oh my goodness.
Scales in difficulty based off of players, and I think there's a way to tweak the handicap there. And obviously 8's way harder than 4, but having that not necessarily be in your living room hopefully makes that easier for friends to kind of gather. So
Well, Adam, it looks like Logan's found a game for you and Dave. It's got nut tossing and everything.
Nuts and wood. Nuts and wood.
Nuts and wood. You and Dave have got a game now. I feel good for you now, Adam.
I'm so jealous.
So I would actually like to make a request, Fred. If we don't have that squirrel tree game on the list sometime, it's like there's going to be hell to pay. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to review the squirrel tree game.
All right, so we're gonna move on to it's no longer it's a dark week. Thanks to Halloween, I think a lot of people think it's cute to put out their horror game.
Hate it.
Week. So we are
party pooper.
You can pick up Peg and Peak VR from developed and published by Another World. So an indie developer, they could use your support on Steam this Wednesday. So just in a couple days. The next game we're talking about is going to be a bit more of a throwback, a bit more of a traditional horror game. It really looks a lot like they were trying to remake something like a Resident Evil 2, but not in the same way that that the actual makers did. This is much more of a you'll see what I'm talking about. So, Fear the Dead Unknown. The clock is ticking and the survival game can no longer be stopped. That seems like an awkward translation.
Jesus. James
and Chloe have been chosen, and nothing will ever be the same again after discovering the dark unknown. So, seems to be a fixed camera horror game where you are very much at a disadvantage. There's some light puzzle elements. This really, really looks like they were trying to make Resident Evil 2 as it was in the early 2000s, whenever it came out.
It's pre-2000, I think.
Was it that long ago? Was it PS1 or did Resident Evil 2 come out? Whatever. It's old as balls. So Fear the Dark Unknown. It does have some visual fidelity to it, although you can see a bit of a low budget, maybe.
Yes.
A little bit, maybe.
There's a couple of flaws.
I hate to say things like this, man, because I know that there's a group of people who've dedicated so much time to making this and so much energy. But it looks cheap, man. It looks not good. And I don't know if that's the lighting or it's the actual asset and texturing. I don't know.
So the animations seem really stiff. I
Yes.
think that's honestly part of what made my brain go back to something like a PS2 game or a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill, was that like
you guys are also goddamn spoiled. Seriously,
that's
you
what
guys
I'm
have been
saying.
playing these games made by
I don't wanna
Ubisoft
be a
or
dick.
whatever. They got like 6 gajillion people. They got like one guy whose only job is to animate the toenail of some monster, and you're like, this game doesn't look like those. Of course, it doesn't look like those.
And that's not even the talking point. I don't think it just doesn't. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm a dick. I don't know. God, I'm trying to figure myself out.
I think we're just assholes, man. Because like we're talking about this trailer like kind of before, and I was like, does he not look like some like cheap dollar store crypt keeper? Like I can't get over. Like this.
They're harsh.
I think this is a reflection on us as gamers more than it is a reflection on the game. I think we have just come to expect.
I think that was a good point. I think you're absolutely right.
We have come to expect just unrealistic levels of realism in our realistic video games. And it's so funny because this is the same group of people that will get 2 more games and someone will show me another one of those goddamn pixel art games and be like, I think this is really great. And you're like, somebody tries to make good looking realistic art, but they just don't have the budget or the time or the staff to do it. And I get it. There's a lot, the animations are skating pretty bad. Some of the characters look pretty plastic. This does look like it was either built on a smaller budget or with a smaller team. But,
yes.
If I had put this game out 10 years ago.
Oh, it would have been like, this looks amazing.
Yeah, you guys all would have been all over yourselves about how great this looks. But I take a game that looks like it was made in 1980 with some crappy little pixel, and you're like, oh, it's so wonderful and retro. And I'm just like, I hate you people.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think there's that like spoiled, like we're so used to everything looking like real life almost.
Yeah, the AAA shit.
Quality. For sure.
But I every time I'm watching this trailer, I'm watching it loop on the Twitch right now, and it looks like it's going to be one of those games that is a buggy fucking disaster with the camera. Like, I'm going to get so mad at this shit. I'm going to lose my mind.
Oh my God.
No, and I don't mean that because I loved Resident Evil. Loved it.
It's Resident Evil camera.
I just give you money that it's going to get stuck in a weird angle and you're going to be, I don't know which way I'm going now.
Big talk for a guy that doesn't have a camera right now. Am I right, guys?
Yeah.
What a loser.
Guys. Fuck you. I'm going to float my way to the other side of this screen.
I will say at the very end of one of these videos, there's the bit where the sort of saggy breasted zombie whatever comes out, and you're just like, oh, don't end your video with that. That sounds like
just like swallowing your character. Yeah,
that was not a good moment.
Maybe not the one.
Well, don't worry when it comes.
Your video ending moment there.
Looked like a Rick and Morty spoof happening at the end, actually. Like, I was very confused. Like, is this DLC? What's happening? So the environments in it look great. Certain parts of the lighting look great. There is some lighting issues with the model. Like Chris mentioned, there's some weight issues with the model. Like, honestly, the models are rough. The lighting on the models are rough, and the weight of the animations for general movement are rough. Yeah. Aside from that, there's some good visual effects. There's other good light direction throughout the entire thing. I think they have a phenomenal art team for environment. I think they could have spent a little bit more money on the character development and the models that really help drive the living, moving parts. Because I think the environment they probably nailed way better than Resident Evil 2, which is like January 1998. Pre-2000 when it scared the fuck out of me, and I can say that, right?
Yeah,
we're an F-bomb still. I remember that's this type of stream. I see Chris's face. I know I'm accurate. So it's interesting to see where this goes. Hopefully, it gets picked up and loved and adored by Resident Evil fans because that is their target audience. It's the cameras. It's the exact same type of premise. They don't get dinged too heavy for the models at this point, or maybe they can clean it up later. Who knows, depending on the type of feedback they get, because that's also, unfortunately, the reality of spoiled gamers wanting things that help drive games to continue to improve it in the future. So hopefully it gets some love up front that they're able to do that. If not, maybe they can add in better models for DLC and they can kind of help this game along if they feel it's necessary.
I would also like to mention that according to Steam, that this is their first game as a studio. Now, I don't know if they've adjusted their name and maybe they're doing that bounce around thing. I don't know. It might be a small enough team to do that, but that as a first game coming out of the gate, that's pretty badass, man.
See, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Can you tell who here just plays games and who makes them?
100%. Brick's like, these guys have never made a game ever, and they made this. This is great.
I have no idea. Like that's, I guess that's a good thing. Diversity.
I think their video is not doing them full justice. I was looking through some of the screenshots and stuff, and I don't mean like the video is making them look bad. I'm not sure it shows the game to be what the game actually is. If you look at a bunch of the screenshots, there seems to be a lot more puzzly elements to this. There seems to be, it feels like when I look through the screenshots and look at what they're trying to do, it feels a lot like Seventh Guest or Myst or something like that, where there's these, look down at the table and solve the puzzle on the table. It seems like they've got some of that in there, which, obviously Resident Evil wasn't really famous for a lot of that. So I'm not sure that it being a total Resident Evil, what do we call it? A pastiche or whatever. What is the word we say for ripping off a game these days?
Clone.
Inspired by.
Inspired by. That was the polite
spiritual successor.
Oh, there we go. It's a spiritual successor to Resident Evil. I actually feel a little bit more puzzle elements in here that might be interesting and fun. I will back up Brick. If this is honestly the studio's first game, this is a pretty good looking first game. And you kids are all so spoiled. You need to go back to 1980 and see what games.
You noticed exactly what we did. The environments look good. The animals look a little stiff. The models look a little plastic. That's
true.
Yeah,
but it's also a Spain developer from Valencia, Spain. So it's cool to see devs from other parts of the world putting up.
Very true.
Yeah. So I mean, they just need to be better than Resident Evil, which. Ooh.
Did we just cut them a bunch of slack for being Spanish? Did we is there an implied of course it's not that great. It's from Spain. You got to give them some extra points. Did we just do that? Because that seems really rough to Spain.
I was just saying where they're from. The studio.
I mean, if they were from San Francisco, I'd expect better. But Valencia, Spain. What do you expect from those guys? You
can pick up Fear the Dead Unknown. If you are an old school Resident Evil fan, this might kind of scratch that itch, bring in some new some things you weren't expecting, something you haven't played yet, but definitely be in that old school style. So Dreamlight Games, you can pick that up this Thursday. So the next game we're going to watch, and this is, so I have a feeling that this is going to be more a trailer critique than it is going to be a game critique.
I'm so ready.
Simply because we have very little game to look at here. So the Wandered, Frankenstein's creature, is described as write your own version of Mary Shelley's classic novel in a narrative adventure game with a captivating beauty. A French developer, which, as we all know, is not going to earn them any slack around.
That's -10 right off the top.
Hey man, you're at a 90, Fred. Bro.
There are no Spaniards, I tell you.
Mic off, mic on.
Developed by Label Games and Arte France. I don't care. So. So like I said, very, very little very little that could be perceived as gameplay here in the trailer. There's some really nice looking splotchy watercolor art.
Love it.
Get to see a little bit so that part does look good. A couple beautiful screenshots in this game. But if I'm looking at the Steam page and I'm like, I wonder what this game's about, I have no goddamn
0%.
idea.
Mic off.
So from I actually, so not that you guys know anything more than me, but I will default to the developers here. Is this a proper presentation of your game? Not your game of a.
I'm with you, Adam. I watched this video like 8 times, and I was like, I have no idea what this game is. The screenshots look beautiful. I mean, flat out, the art style looks absolutely beautiful. And I go on about this in every single live stream we do, where I'm like, there's a million art styles out there, and video games have chosen 6. and we really ought to be doing more with other visual art styles. This sort of pastel watercolor, very beautiful. It almost looks like a game made by Monet or something. It looks really nice. I would love to see a game in this art style. So like from that level, I'm looking at this and I'm like, this looks really interesting. I like the idea of, Frankenstein's story as told through the eyes of, Frankenstein, and, maybe we can understand his life challenges or whatever.
It is interesting that the game is called Frankenstein's Creature, where it's traditionally been called Frankenstein's Monster. So definitely implying that you get to change some of those monstrous tendencies that they wrote into that character. Maybe you get to be, a Shrek style grump, rather, like you just, I don't know what Frankenstein can do other than smash. So
True.
Don't take that out of
plenty
context.
of games where all I can do is smash.
That's a good point.
Apparently, Frankenstein can have a couple glasses of wine and learn art, and some watercolors. But the unfortunate part is just going back to the trailer. The trailer doesn't do any sort of good for telling me a single thing about this game outside of its art style.
Yeah,
if that is enough, and the ultimate feature being rediscover a pop culture icon through 18 paintings and a point-and-click narrative game. So I'm assuming you can click through the paintings, the parts that you like, and make decisions and just consider the painting done. And the parts that you click on make sense and you have decisions to make, but I don't know if this is so much a game as it would be more of an experience. So from an artistic standpoint, you're right. This could be a phenomenal piece that starts to help people expand boundaries and test out different art styles in games and concepts. This could be a concept that's really popular within point and click if people find music and the art aesthetic enough over even a need for new narrative, because this is a known thing, right? And you can just make tweaks to it to make it appealing for a youth of today, or us old folks that apparently say things like Daria, and we have to get a pulse from the friggin' audience on that one.
Daria may as well be older than Frankenstein at this point to these kids. So Allie, Brick, so purely from a game buyer standpoint, how much research are you willing to do into a game if it doesn't just make itself obvious upon looking at a Steam page? Not much.
Okay, so little background. I'm a huge Frankenstein fan. Like in general and speaking, I love horror. I love everything. Love Frankenstein. I've got art all over my house. But like, this is really fucking pretty. I'll give it that. But I just, from like a standpoint, it's like, okay, I don't know anything about it. It looks like maybe Frankenstein's more of like a Yeti kind of creature thing.
Seems to be wearing a cloak.
Like a cloak or something.
That's not fur, Allie.
I can't. Well, fine. I can't see. But either way, like,
yes, yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna buy into it just because of the art, even as a huge Frankenstein fan. You know what I mean?
So I'll do with this game more than likely what I do with every game that attacks my caveman brain with flashy colors and stupid attractive things right off the bat. When I'm scrolling through Steam and it's like, ooh, pretty, and I click on it, I immediately go to the community hub and I start reading and looking at screenshots of what people are bitching about when they're like, that fucking thing can't get over the river. Like they're just complaining about nothing, right? And then I start, that's the extent of my research of any game on Steam, is I read through the community hub and see what people are discussing and look at those screenshots. So with this, I have no idea what this game is. I
think most people aren't nearly as uppity as you. I think most people look at it, and if they don't know what it is, there were 100 and something games released this week. I'll go play something that I can see the video and I'll be like, oh, that's something I want to play.
Yep.
I don't have time for that, right? I mean, I barely have time to look at the games my friends make, much less, some random game on Steam that I don't know what it is. So I think the video is really not helping it.
No, not at all. But the colors are really touching base with my 10,000 BC self. They're really getting in there.
Is that what you call your feminine side?
No, my caveman brain. My feminine side is based in that Pine game right now. That one game we were talking about like 2 weeks ago.
Wait, so we showed you your feminine side live on the Noobcast 2 weeks ago? Is that?
Yeah, that was it. That got deep into me. Really exposed my inner self. Okay.
Why were you so deep inside your microphone when you said that? You're
I've got his fucking mouth around that thing right now. That's how much of the feminine side.
Are we not doing phrasing? Are we not doing phrasing today?
Oh no! We'll never have another girl on because we have Breck. It's fine.
Exactly.
Sorry, Allie.
Breck's
Breck's going to start showing up with wigs, and he'll be the Florida killer.
I'll keep it good.
But I do want to. I want to go back to the game for a second, and I do want to state for the record, I appreciate somebody using a visual style that doesn't get a lot of love in video games, and I just wish. I mean, I honestly wish more video game developers, and this is pertinent because this is by the Cultural European and TV Digital Channel Arte, or however French pronunciation of that. I wish that video game developers would go to museums more often. I wish they would open their heads and go look at other things and other ways of doing stuff. There's a million different things that we could be doing with video games, from a design point of view, from an art point of view, and we don't do it, right? We don't. Every time you sit down and make a new video game, you're like, okay, is it going to be orcs or is it going to be space marines? Which one? Pick one. It's the same shit every time. And then you're like, okay, is it going to be realistic? Is it going to be cartoon? Is it going to be cel shaded? Or is it going to be pixel art? Them's your choices. You got nothing else. And at some point, you have to say, if we're going to be an evolving art form and we're going to do new stuff, and this isn't from some sort of highfalutin artsy perspective, this is just from a commercial perspective, you can't do the same shit over and over and over again and expect people to stay with your art form. At some point, something else is going to offer them something, and that's going to touch their whatever the heck Brick was talking about, his 30 BC lizard pain woman self. What? If you want to touch Brick and his womanly side, you're going to have to do something different.
You're going to have to just go for colors.
At which point, this will be slightly delayed. Just to double click on your point, Chris. The Arte developer, represented by France in this instance, their Steam developer profile has a breadth of different art styles that they've tried in the game. There is a ton of different diverse content that they've already put out. And I think this is just another evolution in a style that they haven't tried yet. So their portfolio, as far as things that they're experimenting with, I think is extremely diverse. So, I think you're right in giving them the hats off in that. So.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we wrap on the Wanderer, did anybody here play Journey for the PS3?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, gorgeous game, very heavy on just the aesthetic appeal, super relaxing kind of game, not unlike almost like we brought up Flower a few weeks ago, I think. And if you just saw some raw footage of that game, it would just kind of be a guy running from left to right.
Mm-hmm.
Is Journey as an experiential kind of game, like you were talking, Logan? Is that just a freak of nature that got any kind of popularity? Is that just a wild one-off, or is there really room for games like this that are that kind of experience based?
I think there completely is room for it. And, there's certain VR experiences which are extremely popular for that reason too. Sometimes people don't want to have to think a ton. I'll use Brick as my primary example.
That doesn't do anything.
He can't. That's not fair.
Speaking of not thinking at all.
He can't even read.
It's true.
I mean, there is a joy to being able to shut off your brain and just kind of enjoy some visuals and some really cool music and experience something, right? Not necessarily have to level up and have experience, not have to turn in a quest, not have to get a
off.
Wander around an area and let the area kind of influence you. So I think there is tons of room for lots of games like this.
I will add just one last point. I know we're out of time, but I'm in the background. I'm scrolling around through some other similar games that have been published by the French company I can't pronounce, and they have one which is actually a Claude Monet experience where you through a dialogue between Claude Monet and his old friend, you contemplate a VR experience. Blah blah blah. Thing was put out 6 months ago. It's got 2 user reviews. And that's the problem, right? It's really difficult to bang your face against. all right, we're going to do this really, beautiful contemplative VR experience. And I'm looking at the video for this other game that we're not talking about, and it looks really pretty. It looks really interesting. I'm actually kind of drawn to it, and nobody's there. So, part of the challenge is going to be how, I bitch about game developers always making the same shit. It's because game players always play the same shit, and we're going to have to, as an audience, open our heads a little bit and say, hey, maybe I do want to actually look into this Frankenstein game and, go read some user reviews or go to a YouTube video and see what it is. Maybe we have to expand ourselves a little bit to open our heads to this experience. But it would be helpful if the damn developer would make a video that I could understand the game. That would help.
It's true. It's true.
It has,
we're gonna move on.
but it has more reviews than that, Chris, and the only negative review is from someone that couldn't get it to work on Windows 10, and thus ends Steam rant. Fucking iCloud.
Developers love that.
Fuck.
I couldn't get it to work. Game sucks.
Terrible.
Bullshit, developers.
All right.
My graphic card sucks. You get a negative review.
You can pick up The Wandered, Frankenstein's Creature, and if you do, honestly, show out and chat next week, because actually I'm kind of curious as to how this thing might play. So you can pick up The Wandered on Thursday this week on Steam. So our next game, like I said, it is a dark week. That's partly why I picked The Wanderer, because God damn it, I needed some pinks and blues in my life. The next game is called Song of Horror. Song of Horror is a survival horror adventure. Face the manifestations of the presence, an unpredictable eldritch AI that reacts to your way of playing. You won't experience two exact gameplays. So we are going to involve something that I know we all love at this show, some rogue-like elements. I know some of that bingo progression style. There are many different characters that you can kind of take on different perspectives of, I assume, kind of like the same crime scene, the same haunted place. I'm not sure exactly what's happening in here, but there are several characters through which you can play the game. So Song of Horror, another horror game. I know, guys, it's getting depressing. But is this game standing out to you at all among the in the world of all these new Resident Evil games and all these like newer, fresher horror games? Allie, I'll let you start.
This one looks really good to me. Honestly, This is something that I would definitely pick up. I like that you can play all these different, choose your own adventure, and none of them are like you can play through the game, however many times without playing the same way and just experiencing all the endings or whatever they change about it. This is definitely something I would pick up, and it looks beautiful. Just the walkthrough of it from the trailer looks great. All of these screen grabs look amazing. There's so much detail in everything. It's just, again, the spoiled gamer in me really likes this.
Yeah, this does seem to have we were hard on a previous game for having some wonky animations or some stiff movement, things like that. This seems to have a lot of those, so it seems to be a similar style game, but has some of that, some more polish to it. And it seems to be a bit more modern, I suppose. It doesn't have that fixed camera, which, I think a lot of people moved on from. A lot of people want that. That's why they want a game like Resident Evil 2, that kind of old school feel. But yeah, I mean, I am seeing some familiar territory here, haunted houses and such. A brick. Is this a horror game for you?
Maybe. I'm curious because it's rated at about $7, just about $8.
Yeah, like $8.
$8. How long is it going to be for that when there's already episode 2 as a DLC? That's the only thing that makes me a little nervous, man.
Ooh.
Is that it's like this might
pass?
be. Yeah, that's the thing that makes me nervous, is that this is kind of going to be an episodic game where you play through and it's like, well, you better shell out $8 more to find out what happened to your character. But I don't know if that's the case. Other than that, I think it's pretty.
Yeah, and if you spoiled Twitch would pay real money for games, we wouldn't have to do that to you.
Jesus Christ.
We used to charge $50 for a game, but you kids won't pay that anymore.
Chris, this is a lot of misdirected hostility towards me, and I don't get it.
You're standing on the
voice
man's
of
lawn.
Gamers. It's the same thing. It's like, I won't pay $50 for a game. All right, we'll give you like a third of the game for $8, and then if you want to play the rest of it, we'll get our $50 out of you sooner or later, because that's what it costs to make one of these games.
Right.
I mean, the very first thing that we said when we saw this was, look at the polish. Look, the animations look great. Look, the art looks great.
Looks good.
That shit ain't free, man.
No, you're
Somebody's
absolutely
got to
right.
make all that. It's got to make it look good. And now you're like, I don't know. They want $7 for it.
Well, that's
Well, no.
Big Mac
That's
for
what I'm
$7,
just.
man.
I'm
That's
curious of where it's gonna go. So I don't think I'm the demographic you're targeting, man. I just bought COD, bro.
Yeah.
It's not
fair
the
enough.
$50 limit is not like
No.
my shtick here. What I'm curious of is that this is gonna be $8 for 30 minutes of gameplay, followed by another $8 of 30-minute gameplay, and that's just gonna continue.
That's
if
worth
it's
it.
just
good, you
makes
pay
me
the money,
nervous.
though.
Yeah.
You know, if you like it, you'll pay the money.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's a good plan actually, because you'll be able to give them a chance for $8.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's kind of what this comes down to.
Yeah.
It's your thing for $22. You get the full season pass. If you're already invested and this feels like the game for you,
You're gonna get
it's
on
gonna
it.
be $22 instead. I assume
Right.
saving $1 per episode. I'm guessing it's 3 episodes. Maybe they'll sneak a 4th one in and really be thankful to the people that paid the full advance
Right.
money up front. You don't know, but once again, if this is your jam, I'd probably, if you play 1 episode and it's great, I just pick up the season pass as a consumer. But once again, like you guys said, this isn't cheap. This is really good quality dev work for
Absolutely.
this specific
It's
genre.
worth the $8, I think, even just looking at the art. Honestly,
Yeah, I think it's worth $8 for a lot of people to try. So hopefully this works out well for them. And whether it's episodes, since they're trying to do a thing where you're able to uniquely play a scenario, maybe it works out where it's like American Horror Story and you have sections of a completely different
Interesting.
part of the world that you just get to experience.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not closed off and you're like, I only get to go so far. It's like, oh, I went over to the car wash in this area and this part of town, and that's what I was able to do is work through problems over here,
I
that
just
will
like to point
play it.
out that over in chat, everybody is bragging about the time they paid full price for a game, which is funny to me because for them it was like a special event. They're like, dude, I paid full price for a game once. I'm like, dude, we used to always pay full price for games. Like it's like a badge of honor. Like I bought the whole game.
So if you and
5 years ago.
Ron in chat
Catch.
is so I assure you, the fact that person paid full price for Anthem is not a badge of honor.
All right, fair enough.
No.
You make a strong point.
He is expressing shame, I assure you.
Yes, 100%. I know that
Allie
man.
and I
That's
did the
exactly
same
what
thing.
he's doing.
Yep.
I take it all
Yeah,
back. I
it's
take it
totally
all
the
back. My apologies to chat. I take it all.
Right.
I'm not very good at reading out of the corner of my eye. I just caught like half of that story. I feel bad now.
Yeah, because like Fallout 76. Yeah, let's not.
Let's not.
breathe.
Yeah.
Ooh.
we
Woof.
Three
Yeah.
times. Why
Yeah.
would you do that?
Wow.
That-
No, I don't know. He had friends and wanted them all to play.
the
And
only way he
nobody
could do it was to buy them copies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
That sign if you have to pay for the AAA game 3 times because no one will play it with you.
Mhm.
Bad sign.
So what I'm curious of though, also, so speaking on that last game when we were like, wow, this is that first game the dev team has put out. That's great. Well, this is the same case I'm finding on the Steam portal here for the developers. Protocol Games. This is their initial outreach. Now,
Yeah, but
do you guys know anything? Well, we got to figure that out. I was kind of asking Logan and Chris here that is this a situation maybe that the publisher gave them funding, or is this that this team?
I have no idea. I mean, there's
no
all
clue,
kinds of
too.
different ways this could have happened.
I don't know. Because it looks great. It looks
I
fantastic.
mean, maybe this is the
Graphically.
developer's
My
first
God.
game, but I can tell you just from looking at the screenshots, this isn't like I just got out of college.
Individuals,
this is my
right,
first game. This
right.
is
Yeah.
maybe a team
This
of
is
people that
this
worked on other
team's
games
first
somewhere or
game,
something.
yeah.
Whoever made this has made games before.
Absolutely.
There's no way that's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
So I don't know. So speaking of game making, I do wonder. So as
Mic
a
off.
fan of horror movies, Logan and I have talked about this a little bit. So you have to a cheap piece of shit horror movie is going to have lots of jump scares, which are just kind of like something. It was quiet and then it was loud, and that's frightening. But that isn't necessarily. That's not horror. How do you design a horror game so it's not purely built on something popping out at you? And can they make this because this is not, it's different with every playthrough? How do you think they're going to be able to actually get people to play this multiple times and get that AI to really react to them appropriately?
I'm not 100% sure what they
Yeah.
consider AI and what they're using in this context. Maybe they have some sort of machine learning setup to base off where the characters go and try to generate different trigger events based off of a preference of pathing. It's a weird sort of scenario, so I'm not quite sure how it will pay out.
Could be tough.
Ambience seems like the correct way, so maybe if you're a slower player, they can play to that. If you rush head forward, they can play to that. I mean, from a design perspective, it doesn't make sense to me hearing it out loud, but I'm sure that there's a way to do it correctly. Maybe.
Depends on like how immersive they've made it, because I've played some games like that where it's like the voices in your head get louder when you start screwing up, or that kind of thing, and they like play it like audio, like in this year when you're going the right direction or whatever, they move it around a little bit, so it could be worth like making it that way.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think the answer to the question is not how do you not have jump scares. I mean, what really makes a horror game is the mood, the overall mood,
Yes.
right? The jump scare doesn't work if you weren't already tense. And so the trick is not having the jump scare. The trick is having a game that makes you feel tense through its visuals,
Right.
especially through its sound, through the fear that something might happen, the expectation of something, hearing things in the distance. That's an art. And when you get that mood scary enough, you don't have to have it be like, jump scare. I mean, it can even just be like, a door opens and something comes out and you're scared,
Right.
because you're already in that mental space of being stressed.
I
So
think
that's the real
head.
challenge to it.
Right. Well, one of the horror games that I have a really fond memory of is Amnesia, The Dark Descent. I don't know if anyone else played that, but it was
Yes.
that feeling of helplessness in that game that got me like freaking the fuck out, man, that you can't fight the monster. All you can do is run and hide. Comparatively to a game like Fear that was pitched as like a horror FPS game.
Much more action.
Right. And the horror elements in it were okay to me, but you could always kill the thing that was scaring you. So it mitigated that fear. So I wonder if this does that same thing, that it gives you that constant state of helplessness. You got to move. You got to get away from it. I don't know.
So you can. So we got to move on to the next game. You can pick up Song of Horror this Thursday on Steam. Definitely looks like something worthwhile. If they nail that AI and it really is reactive, then it could be something really fun. So you can pick it up this Thursday. Developed by Protocol Games, published by Riser Games. The final game that we're going to talk about. Oh, before I forget, don't forget, this is your last chance before the end of the show. You can pick up. You can go to opnoobs.com/raffle and you enter to win a copy of Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Perfect game with not evil monetization whatsoever. Okay, Ghost Parade. Ghost Parade is developed by Lentera Nusantara. I don't know why I went for that one. There's something spooky in the woods, and it needs your help. Team up with 30 ghostly companions, each one lending you a unique ability. Explore the spine-tingling, scrolling action adventure, and work together to get everyone safely home. So this is a side-scroller platformer where you are collecting ghostly companions, it says, and they're each going to add their own little power-ups, different ways to traverse the map. So this is a ghost game that is not spooky. I don't know how many platformers we have out there. Guys,
1 million.
Take on.
I believe we have hit the 1 million mark in 2019 on platformers.
So this does have there is a shtick here. There is a concept with the Ghost Collection. Chris, is that not doing enough for you to separate it from the many platformers available to people on Steam?
I'd like to just point out that Essentialist over in chat is like, Chris looks like he's about to tear this game up. You are correct, sir. You have guessed correctly. I guess, but the short version of what I would say is, if it weren't Halloween and it weren't a Halloween themed game, would we even be talking about this? Right?
Nope.
right? There are like a gajillion of these. I'm looking at the animation in it. I'm looking at the art in it. It's not bad. It's all right, but it's not great. It's as I said in another live stream, it's another one of these, right? And I guess if you just really the 500 side scrollers that you've got in your Steam library that you haven't gotten around to playing yet aren't doing you right, I guess you could put this one in the pile and not play it too. I hate to trash a game like that, but it just feels, I don't know, I watched the video like 3 or 4 different times, and I'm like, were any of the moves different? Was there something where I saw like the character was jumping in an interesting different way, or was being challenged by a monster in a way I haven't seen before? Was there an interactive object that I could, fly with fans or do something? And I mean, I get it. It's hard to do another one of these right now and come up with interesting, new, innovative ideas, because there's a million of the damn things, and there's a lot of creative developers that have done these. So, yeah, no. I mean,
I think you're right. The art style, this developer, when I looked it up in their Steam profile, seems to have a large amount of games that are out. So hopefully this is just satisfying their own personal fan base with their unique anime-like cutscenes. I'm assuming is going to be the bigger push to be able to buy it, because it does look really, really rough as far as today's offerings for platformers, and pretty generic with its overall animations and style. So it is another one of those for me as well. Not really going to hit the top of my list because I don't necessarily seeing it satisfying a ton of different things, at least from this trailer and what I've loosely gathered.
So do we have any fans of Ori and the Blind Forest on the panel today?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So I do see this as so cynically you could call this a discount Ori and the Blind Forest.
Spiritual successor?
No. Come on. This is if Ori has a good working job, this thing is on welfare. Come on, dude. I'm sorry. I can't. I know those devs work super. I actually am familiar with them, so that makes me a little biased.
Okay, sure.
I know they work super hard. I'm familiar with the team at Microsoft that works with them. Like they are a very, very hardworking, long team that had to go through a lot of struggle to get Ori and the second Ori out. So, like, I just look at that comparatively with the polish level, and they're just not even remotely in the same genre for me. So,
I would cut them some slack on the polish in that, all right, fine. It's another one of these. How polished does it have to be? There's certainly people who enjoy pixel art versions of these that look like crap. What I'm a little bit more concerned about is
I'm gonna get a pixel art tattoo just to
no shit.
right on your forehead. What I'm more concerned about is, when I watch through the video, when I see a new side-scrolling platformer, is I want to see how is this different from other platformers in the way that it plays, right? Do I tag along with another character? Do I have a character that I have to bring with me? Are there interesting new puzzles and challenges? Is there something about this that I'm going to play it and it's going to be better for me than, Mario, I guess, or whatever it is I'm playing in a side-scrolling platformer? I mean, there's just so many of these that are so good, and Ori is obviously one of them. That if you're gonna go do one of these, you better have something. You better bring something new to the table, whether it's a brand new art style or a brand new gameplay or a really interesting story and character. And as much as I love me an Indonesian dev, I wish that I could say that was true about this. I don't see any of that. To put that in perspective, I work with a lot of Indonesian studios.
Okay, I was wondering why you said that. I was like,
no, Boom's
super weird.
My studio actually has a lot of developers in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, so I tend to be biased towards Southeast Asian devs, and I like to support Indonesian devs, and I wish that I could be more upbeat about this, to be honest.
Yeah.
Allie, Brick, would you guys like to say something disparaging about the game now?
Is it my turn? I feel like this is the part I was supposed to say. It's cute because I'm a girl, but
it is cute. It's cute.
But there's
cuter,
and there's a million of them just like it that are cuter, like you said. And there's more interesting ones. This one's just kind of it's another one, like you guys already said. It's just another one.
Yep. Ooh, you guys want to talk about the Outer Worlds? Maybe this is the one. Ghost Parade gets sacrificed.
I can agree to it because this hits 0 nails for me. I just that hammer is hitting all board, dude. All board.
Touch your feminine insides?
Not at all, dude. My caveman and my inner woman have just both walked out of the room for this one. This one's just
hashtag female protagonist, Britt. Come on.
Yeah. Hashtag I'm leaving. Like fucking Jesus. It's just. I'm sure that there's someone right now that is so proud to watch this game get onto the Steam store and they're like, I can't wait. I love it. I did great. And we're just pooping on it.
I honestly, I will say this. I will say this. I have actually questioned being on this show at all because as a dev, and honestly, as a dev working with teams in the developing world and working with low budgets, I'm not a rich studio or anything like that. It is always difficult for me to come here because there's always the chance that someone's going to show me a game like this, and I'm going to have to give my honest opinion about it. Right. And I know, just like you said, Brick, there's a bunch of people down in Indonesia that worked really hard for this game, and they're really proud of it. And this was, this isn't crap, right? I mean, it made it past however many games that we chose. I don't do the choosing, but Fred said he played like 100 and some odd games out of the 100 and some odd games that got put on Steam. This is one of the few that made it to the show because it was higher value than all the others. Right. But the problem with the game industry right now is everyone and their goddamn dog wants to make a video game. There's great video game making tools, which means everyone and their goddamn dog can make a video game. Mm-hmm. And so there's just a vast torrent of games. And some of them are terrible. We don't talk about the terrible ones here. Some of them are great, and we talk about the great ones here.
So as a game developer,
as
a developer or being part of those teams, aren't you aware that the industry is inherently cannibalistic? Kind of like my line of work is everybody is just a critic of each other. We defend what we do more than anything else, but then if someone else does something that's mildly different, we're like, that guy's an ass. That guy's dumb. So I feel like as a member of a dev team, you have to be ready for that as well, that you're going to get cannibalized. You're going to have people who create relative products that are like,
oh, dude, I've been ripped off more times than I can think, right? And that's part of game. And I've ripped people off. I'll be honest about it, right? I've certainly played a game and been like, yeah, totally, we're using that in our game. Like that happens all the time, right? I do that weekly, right? But at some point as a game dev, you have to be cognizant of how competitive this industry is right now. And you have to look at your game and say, does the world need this? I won't mention his name, but I was talking to a relatively well-known game developer just last week. I was having a phone call with him. And he was like, I don't know if I can keep making games anymore because I don't know if the world needs another one of my games. I don't know if I've got anything creative or interesting to offer the world.
It's a hard place to be. Damn.
So
I mean, that's the existential crisis of the artist.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's very difficult for me as a working, I don't want to say artist, but as a working developer to come in here and trash a game like Ghost Parade because it's not a terrible game. It's not a bad game. These guys should be proud of what they did.
It doesn't look like a lazy game, even if it is derivative.
Correct. That's yes.
Yeah.
But in the world of video games today, it's very difficult for me to say, yeah, you shouldn't play the other 500 great games on Steam. You should play this one. That's a difficult statement to make, honestly, right? And that's hard for me as a game developer. It's actually, I'll believe it or not, I'm going to go have breakfast after this, and I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to sit down at a table, and I'll be like, damn, I just trashed those guys. What a dick I am. Like, it's hard for me. So yeah, I've actually questioned doing this.
Anyone that's watched the show, I don't think anyone thinks that Natsume has feelings. So
this is kind of a very strange night.
I keep them down deep where they don't bother anybody.
Guys, we got to wrap it up. Because we have a goddamn meat raffle. Who's getting steak? we have a raffle. We gotta Fred, you gotta put it on the screen now.
During this raffle, we'll actually determine if if Chris is allowed to have feelings. So,
you are out of chances. We do this every
Come on,
week.
dead inside. Come on, dead inside.
Whoever's getting this is for a copy of Ghost Recon Breakpoint from Ubisoft, Chris's favorite studio. Woo! Oh my god. People making porn never have this problem of, does anyone want my work?
I just like to point out that person works for me. That's a true statement.
Send the ticks. Congratulations. You just Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I'm sure either OP Noobs or Sin is going to reach out to you for the code. So congratulations. Guys, so much. Allie, Brick, Chris, Logan, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for coming by. We'll be doing this again next Monday. You can find us at 6:30 Mountain Time, the only time zone that matters. 8:30 Eastern. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Twitch, we love you. Have an awesome day. Don't forget to follow.